Greetings and welcome to the Introduction to Astronomy. In this week's exploration of the solar system, we are going to talk about the Lunar Prospector spacecraft and what it helped us to better understand. So let's go ahead and get started here. And what we can look at is the Lunar Prospector spacecraft, as shown here, was launched on January 7th of 1998 into a lunar polar orbit, meaning it would go up over the poles instead of around the equatorial regions, which as previous craft would have. So this gives us a chance to study the polar regions of the moon a little bit better. Its design was to do things like map the surface of the moon to be able to better understand it, and to study the gravitational and magnetic fields. Now, at the end, it would crash into the surface in a search for water. So what did the craft find? Well, let's take a look at some of the images from it. And in fact, here is a map showing the chemical composition, in this case looking at the element thorium. So we're looking at the chemical composition of the lunar surface, and we can see that thorium is concentrated in very specific areas. And they're on the near side of the moon that we look at on the left here, and the regions in the red and into the white are the very highest concentrations of thorium, perhaps from other impacts that occurred that might have been objects that were rich in this element. We've also were able to find an excess of hydrogen when mapping the polar regions, and here we can see the south polar region, and the very blue and purple there are showing us the excess of hydrogen, meaning possibly the presence of water. So water present on the moon, not something we would have really thought of before, because the moon has no atmosphere, it's exposed to the sun, and high temperatures would vaporize any water or even ice that were present on the moon. It also gave us maps of the gravitational and magnetic field, as we can see here. We have the gravitational field up on the top, and we have the magnetic field down below. Now, both are, of course, much weaker than the Earth's, but we see that they are not completely uniform, and that there could be large concentrations of mass from impacts underneath the surface that could increase the local gravitational field of various areas. And we see that in the upper image in the red. And the magnetic field, while much weaker than Earth's, does also have certain areas of concentration, areas on the far side where the magnetic field is significantly stronger than the very close to zero magnetic field in many parts of the near side. Now, at the end of its mission, on July 31st of 1999, it was crashed into a crater on the south polar region. Now, the idea here was that hopefully searching for water. Now, we're not going to find liquid water on the moon, but if we crashed into a crater that had ice in it, the energy would vaporize that, and then we would likely be able to detect the water vapor then that would be expelled out before it escapes from lunar gravity. It turns out that really didn't happen. We didn't find anything. Doesn't mean that there isn't water on the moon, simply that the crater that we hit didn't have anything in it. So, while it was a good attempt, it really was unsuccessful. So let's go ahead and finish up with our summary, and what we've looked at today is the Lunar Prospector, a craft launched to study our moon, learning about the composition, the magnetic, and the gravitational fields, and at the end of its mission it was crashed into a crater for search for water on the surface of the moon. So that concludes this discussion of the Lunar Prospector spacecraft. We'll be back again next week for another exploration of the solar system video. So until then, have a great day, everyone, and I will see you in class.